your mind charges brutal interest. It's a phrase that sounds harsh, maybe even a little unfair. We're all familiar with compound interest when it comes to money, right? That magical process where small, consistent investments start to grow. And then the growth itself starts to earn interest, leading to an exponential curve upwards over time. It's the cornerstone of long-term financial planning. For a while, I've been thinking about how this principle isn't just confined to our bank accounts. You hear it applied to skills. Practice a little every day, and you become a master. 2. Relationships. Small acts of kindness and connection build a strong bond, and that's all true. It's a positive, empowering way to look at growth. But then, a less comfortable thought started to creep in. If positive accumulation compounds, what about the other side of the coin? What about neglect? What about the things we don't do? That's when the idea shifted from a gentle, encouraging concept to something with a sharper edge. It struck me that the most powerful, and frankly, the most brutal form of compound interest operates not on our finances, but right here, inside our heads. And it doesn't always work in our favor. Consider this. A day you choose not to learn something new, or to engage your mind critically, isn't just a day of standing still. It's not a neutral act. It's a tiny withdrawal from your intellectual capital. And that withdrawal means you have slightly less principle, less foundational knowledge or mental acuity to build upon the next day. This isn't immediately obvious. One day is just one day. But just like financial interest, these small, seemingly insignificant daily deficits begin to compound over weeks, months, and years. These unaddressed gaps in knowledge or unexercised mental faculties don't just remain static. They widen, they start to create a kind of intellectual fog. It becomes subtly harder to connect new ideas, to grasp complex concepts, to adapt to changing circumstances. This is the interest ignorance charges. It's a debt that grows silently, insidiously, making you less adaptable, less innovative, and, in a very real sense, less capable than you could have been. Think about someone in a rapidly evolving industry. If they stop actively learning, stop keeping up with new developments, they don't just stay at the same level of competence. Their existing knowledge becomes outdated, less relevant. The gap between them and the cutting edge widens exponentially. That's the brutal interest of complacency in action. So, how do you combat this mental entropy, this downward pull? It begins with something incredibly fundamental, something we all possess but perhaps don't cultivate enough. Curiosity. Curiosity is the seed money for your intellectual growth. It's that innate itch to know, to understand, to explore beyond the comfortable boundaries of your current knowledge. Without genuine curiosity, you're not even making the initial deposits into your mental account. It's the spark that says, I wonder why that is. Or how does that work? Or what if I looked at this from a different angle? For example, you might read an article about a scientific breakthrough that seems completely unrelated to your field. A passive mind might skim it and move on. A curious mind might pause, look up a few unfamiliar terms, and try to understand the basic principles. That small act of engagement, driven by curiosity, is an investment. It might not seem to yield an immediate, tangible return, but it's adding a tiny bit of new data, a new connection, to your mental framework. This is how you can apply it in daily life. Actively make space for curiosity. Pick one thing each day that you don't understand or know much about, and spend just 10 to 15 minutes reading or watching a short video about it. It could be anything from how black holes are formed to the history of a particular art movement. The subject matter is less important than the act of engaging your curiosity and expanding your mental horizons, even slightly. Over time, these small explorations build a richer, more interconnected web of knowledge. But curiosity alone, while absolutely essential, isn't enough to make those intellectual investments truly pay off and compound effectively. You need another crucial ingredient, the discipline of focus. In our modern world, which is an absolute fire hose of distractions, focus is the mechanism that allows new information to actually take root, to be processed deeply, and to connect with existing knowledge in a meaningful way. This is where the compounding really happens. Think about multitasking. It's often lauded as a skill, but neurologically, it's more like rapidly switching between tasks, giving each only superficial attention. It's like trying to water 10 different plants with a single small watering can, giving each just a quick sprinkle. None of them are likely to thrive. Deep, concentrated effort on one thing, even for a relatively short but uninterrupted period, is like giving one plant a good, thorough soak-in. That's where the real growth occurs, where you move beyond surface-level acquaintance with a topic to genuine understanding or skill acquisition. This is where a concept like deep work, popularized by Cal Newport, becomes incredibly relevant. Deep work refers to professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. How can you apply this? Try to dedicate specific, uninterrupted blocks of time for learning, problem-solving, or creative thinking. Turn off notifications. Let people know you're unavailable. Even starting with 25-minute focused sessions, like the Pomodoro technique, can be incredibly effective. During that time, you commit to a single task. The goal is to enter a state where you're fully absorbed, allowing your brain to make those deeper connections. This focused effort is what transforms raw information, sparked by curiosity, into robust, compounded understanding and skill. So you see, it's a system. Curiosity provides the raw material, the what if. The initial spark. Focus is the disciplined process that smelts that raw material into solid, compounded understanding. And the brutal part, the part that gives the title its weight, is this. If you neglect either of these, if your curiosity wanes or your ability to focus is constantly fractured, then the alternative, that compounding ignorance, that intellectual decay, takes over almost by default. There really is no neutral gear for your mind when it comes to this. You're either actively building and compounding your intellectual assets, or you're passively allowing them to erode, accruing that silent, growing debt. This is why I say, your mind charges brutal interest. It's relentless, and it operates every single day, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Every day, you are either making deposits through acts of curiosity and periods of focused learning, thereby earning positive compound growth for your future self, or you're effectively making withdrawals through complacency, distraction, and a lack of intellectual engagement, thereby accruing a debt of ignorance. That will make future learning harder, and your overall adaptability significantly lower. The practical application here is to become a conscious investor in your own mind. Recognize that small, consistent efforts are key. You don't need to spend hours every day in deep study, but can you find 30 minutes for focused reading on a topic that piques your curiosity? Can you dedicate a specific block of time each week to learn a new skill, free from distractions? Can you make it a habit to question assumptions and seek out different perspectives? These are the deposits. Conversely, be aware of the withdrawals. How much time is lost to mindless scrolling or passive consumption of low-value content? How often do you opt for the easy, familiar mental path instead of tackling something that challenges you? These aren't morally bad things in isolation, but cumulatively, they contribute to that negative compounding. The good news, if you can call it that in the face of such a stark mechanism, is that you have agency. You control the transactions. You decide, through your daily choices, whether to pay into your growth or into your decline. It's not about grand, sweeping gestures of intellectual pursuit, but about those small, consistent daily investments of attention, inquiry, and focused effort. Over time, these are the choices that will determine whether your mind becomes your greatest, most powerful appreciating asset, or your most unforgiving, silent creditor. The interest will be charged, one way or another. The only question is whether it will be working for you or against you. So, understanding this brutal interest, your mind charges isn't meant to be discouraging. It's actually empowering, because it means the solutions are within your daily grasp, often in very simple ways. You don't need to suddenly enroll in a PhD program or dedicate hours to dense textbooks unless you want to. The real leverage comes from small, consistent, mindful actions. Think about your daily conversations. Instead of just waiting for your turn to speak, truly, listen. Ask one more clarifying question than you normally would. This is a micro-investment in understanding. When you encounter information, whether it's a news headline or an advertisement, take just a few seconds to mentally question its source or underlying assumptions. This flexes your critical thinking muscles. Consider swapping just 5 minutes of passive social media, scrolling for 5 minutes of reading a summary of an interesting article, or learning the definition and origin of a new word. The benefit of these tiny actions is that they are sustainable. They don't require massive willpower, but done consistently, they build those intellectual assets and make those positive deposits. Each small act of curiosity satisfied, each moment of focused thought, each question asked, contributes to that positive compounding. It makes future learning easier and your mind more agile. Over time, these almost unnoticeable shifts in your daily habits can lead to a significant accumulation of knowledge, improved critical thinking, and a greater capacity for understanding the world. It's about making conscious choices in the small moments. Choosing to engage, to question, to learn, even in tiny increments, changes the direction of that intellectual interest from negative to positive. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the description below. There might be something there to help you along this path.